Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the March 28th meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. The first order of business is to have our invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I am honored to have my pastor and Claire's pastor, Rod Stone, here to give the invocation. If we will all stand, we will follow the invocation with the pledge of allegiance.
Pray. Almighty God, whose goodness fills our heart with joy, as the agenda of this meeting is about to begin, we first pause and say thank you. Thank you for the privilege of living in such a great place. Oh, sure, things can always be improved upon, but may we not lose sight of what we have, and may we find the time to express our gratitude to you and to one another for the many blessings that come to us as being part of this great community. We acknowledge this place is great due to the contribution of men and women like those who have gathered here in this assembly hall. Thank you for their commitment, for their time that they plan and meet and attend various events and give of their time and talent so that our needs will be addressed. We give great thanks. Send your Spirit now upon this council and the members of this village staff to enable them to be faithful in their duties, wise in their decisions, and supported in their abilities to serve this community in which they have oversight. And give us as a community a serving spirit. May we all work for the common good, and as we work together, help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. And may we find the ability to work together in harmony even when we disagree. Always carry with us that sense of welfare and care for one another. Be with us now as the work that will be done this day may benefit all who live and work within this beloved community of Pinehurst. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Stone. We have so many exciting things on our agenda today, you may just want to leave, but you're welcome to stay for as long as you like. Next on our agenda, we have reports, first from our manager.
The only thing I really have to report is staff has kind of just started to get neck deep in the budget preparation. So this week we're doing a lot of detailed review of the requests that have been rolling up from the various departments. As you know, we in last year's budget, we earmarked some potential funds to deal with a recreation project in the future. At the time, we were kind of non-specific and thought we might be pursuing either a recreation facility or improvements to West Pinehurst Park, and we're still kind of trying to figure out where to go with that, given the fact that we're in a little bit better position with budget this year, coming out of this year, than we anticipated. But it's a kind of an exciting time to be contemplating all these things and trying to figure out how to make it all work. So we look forward to being able to give the council a complete rollout on what our recommendations are going to be, but we haven't seen enough yet to really give you anything to sink our teeth into yet. So a lot of hard work in front of us.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Clark? Okay. John?
No, ma'am.
Claire? John? I would just mention that John Cashin did take over my duties. I was out of town, and he welcomed everybody to the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is very good. Also, the Partners in Progress golf tournament was today, and we did get a team up. I didn't hear their names among the winners, though, so I don't know what happened. We won't mention who was on the team. But a good time was had by all this morning over at number 8 and followed by lunch. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which can be enacted under one motion. All of these things have been seen and discussed by the council at earlier points.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by John Cashin and a second by Claire Bergeron. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. That's unanimous. Lauren. Okay, next we have number 5.
All right, Natalie, you want to take the
Natalie?
lead on this one?
I'd like to invite the financial services staff to come forward, please. What we're going to do today is present the award that the Financial Services staff has received from the Government Finance Officers Association. It's a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And so I want to present this to John Fry and his team and say congratulations for the hard effort that you've made on this. And I want to make a few comments. So this is the highest form of recognition in governmental financial accounting and reporting, and it is a result of the production of this document, our annual comprehensive annual financial report. And each of these individuals, John Fry, the director, Susan Key, as well as Brooke Hunter, and then Nancy Niedermeyer, who's also an employee of the finance department, who's not here tonight, contributes. Back in the late 90s, I'm dating myself, when I worked in public accounting, I used to write this document. The village contracted with me to do that. So I know exactly what it takes to put this together, and it is no small feat, and it is one that each and every one of the financial services staff contributes to every year for that audit. So it's a huge achievement, and on top of that, they've done it for 24 consecutive years. So congratulations to you and your staff.
I'd just like to take a moment to reflect on how important this is to have this kind of financial assurance that our staff is doing the best job ever. 24 years, the GFOA doesn't give these things out like candy. They go over you like a fine-tooth comb. If you ever happen to read other local governments' problems, most of the time, they come in the financial areas, and we are so lucky to have an excellent staff of finance staff to watch over our money, and it is our money. It's all of our money. And so I want to thank you all again for the hard work that you do. We appreciate it very much, very much. Okay, number 6.
Okay, next up, I guess we'll have Mark Wagner coming up, and maybe Jay Howard and/or Peter Stillwell. This is an opportunity for you to consider basically renewing sponsorship for this year's concourse. And I guess I could throw in a level of endorsement here. John Fry and I have had the opportunity to go back and review a performance from last year, and we think that this is appropriate.
Thank you. This is the sponsorship request for the 2017 concourse. It is planned to be held the weekend of May 5th. The facilities that they are asking to use, as in years past, would be the Fair Barn, the half mile, and the mile track at the harness track and Tufts Park. The value that we would associate with those facilities is approximately $15,000. This does come to council for approval as it falls under our sponsorship policy that the village has, a Category B. Excuse me. So that does require council approval for that because it is a commercial entity that would earn a profit. So I'll turn it over to Jay if you'd like to say a few words to the council, and then you can answer any questions that they may have.
It's hard to believe this is year 5 for this event, and you know, this event has been continued to grow because of support like we're discussing today. Not just the fact that you allow us to use facilities, but the quality of the facilities and the logistics and the connectivity and the ease that the village and everything around here makes it for our visitors to come, especially those bringing a car from a long distance. They're blown away by how painless it can be to come here and show a car, just from proximity to the field, the hospitality, the village. We have a lot to offer. And including the Fair Barn. I mean, I watched on TV the other night. The Fair Barn got some publicity, and I think it's it makes us sellable. That the fact that we've got use of the facilities that you've allowed in the past, and we're certainly grateful if you're allowing us to continue to do that.
Well, I too am amazed that this is year 5. It seems like it was, I don't know, it doesn't seem that long, but every event has been spectacular. And I am looking forward to having you back again. And are there any questions for Jay or for Mark or Peter?
I'm a resident of Monterey, California, so I've seen the concourse at Pebble Beach in all of the years. I'm excited about what's the continued support and growth and the excitement for the concourse. So it's good to see that although Pebble Beach has started when Pinehurst is catching up in quality and the overall event. So I'm very pleased that you're coming back again for a 5th year.
I think it's easy to measure an event sometimes with how difficult it is to get a room, and I've gotten an abundance of complaints this year because people can't find a room, so that's actually a compliment. They'll find a room.
They'll find a room. They'll find a room.
That just
Okay.
means demand's good.
Yep, that's right, that's right. So everybody needs to get their tickets early, because there's a discount for an early ticket. So we need to get those early.
Whatever reason we want to give, we want people to buy tickets, absolutely.
That's right, that's right.
Adding the concert has been a wonderful idea. So that overall adds to the great experience you have over those several days at which Pinehurst is again showcased.
Well, you've got the 5K was a nice ad last year as well, which allows us to have a conversation with another group of people. And if they go to a 5K and stumble upon a Concours, that's great. If someone wants to buy a Sarah Evans tickets and stumbles upon a Concours, then that's great. If somebody wants to go see Cars and they stumble upon the rest of
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. But at the end of the day, the common denominator is Pinehurst.
That's right. Any other questions or comments? I think we just need to do this by consensus, is that correct? So is it the consensus of the council that we again support the Concours d'Elegance?
I agree.
Everyone agrees? Okay, then we are looking forward to May 5th, the weekend of May 5th.
Thank you all. We'll see you there.
Okay, see you there. Thank you. I thought I heard Mr. Boulder say, "I am a resident of Monterey." I think you're a resident of Pinehurst. Just clearing that up, just clearing that up.
Once upon a time.
Since you are an elected official, you got to be, okay. Next, number 7.
All right, and Jeff Batten's going to handle this, and this is a request that we've had bubble up for us to consider, or for you to consider abandoning a right-of-way. Abandoning a right-of-way.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've put a map up here on the board. I'm going to start kind of at the bottom of the memorandum that I prepared for you. It indicates that this actually came up several years ago. At the time, Andy Wilkerson was village manager, and Mayor, I think you were on the council perhaps at that time. It was a number of years ago, but nonetheless. Pine Ridge Road, as you can see up there on the map, it's kind of on the left side of that heavy black line, is a stub road that dead ends into Jackson Hamlet as far as village maintenance goes. Once it transitions across the line up there, it moves into Jackson Hamlet on what is called Hazelnut Lane, which is actually on private property. There's not a DOT right-of-way there. It leads out eventually to Gaines Street, which goes out to Highway 5. So it is a cut through between the lake area and Jackson Hamlet, and a connection between those two communities there. We had a builder approach us about one of those lots that you see on Pine Ridge that are unbuilt upon, asking if the village would consider closing and abandoning the right-of-way, I assume in order to perhaps improve sale opportunities. That's not speculation on my part, but I really don't know. But since the request came forth, this is council's purview to make some determination as to whether you would want to consider doing that or not. There is a process by which we would have to follow to abandon public right-of-way. And there may be a few other things relative to the planning department that might come into play, but overall, if you elect to do so and wanted to close that right away, you would basically be setting the private property owners. Once the right of way is abandoned, it splits into two, and half goes to either adjacent landowners. They in turn would be able to do whatever they wanted to with it, up to and including potentially closing that access through there. So that would be at their choice if that's the route that the village elected to go as far as abandoning the right-of-way.
So at this point, village maintenance ends at the end of Pine Ridge Road?
It does. Right there at the black line represents the village limit. Once you leave the village limit, you're in Jackson Hamlet, and that is not maintained by the state right through there. The neighborhood, I guess, presumably over in
Right.
some form or fashion maintains that dirt road. I really don't know the exact ins and outs, but it is utilized to a degree as a transition between Jackson Hamlet and the lake area and out to Highway 5.
Does anyone have any questions for Jeff?
No, I believe there are individual owners of all four of those lots, one of which is for sale. The one that ends in 8-6 up there, it's on the top. A builder is the one that has who is potentially wanting to buy the lot, is my understanding.
How do you get to that lot if we abandon the road?
That's where planning would come in. We wouldn't abandon the entire stretch of Pine Ridge. You'd only abandon basically from the property line back down Pine Ridge Road to a certain point where you still, and then once that was split between those two adjoining properties, 8-6 and 5-5, I believe, if I can see correctly, they would have road frontage on Pine Ridge Road at that point. It essentially almost looked like a cul-de-sac, but with no center lot in the middle. At what would be
So we're
12
really
o'clock.
not abandoning the entire road, we're abandoning just the width of those lots.
Correct, probably slightly less than that in order to maintain the lots to be on public road, have public road frontage.
So this is the beginning of the process? If we agree?
If
that
you
there's a-
want to pursue it, there is a whole statutorily required process, public hearing, et cetera.
I don't see how it hurts the village one bit, just shortening our maintenance, right?
Well, we'll still
To a
maintain Pine
degree,
Ridge Road.
yeah,
but
it would take a little bit of maintenance,
Little bit of
whatever
maintenance.
stretch that is, 50 feet, whatever we ended up ultimately deciding to abandon. The only other things off the top of my head that I could think of is potentially some of the lake folks that may use that area, that pass through to get to Highway 5 without going all the way back to Lake Hills. And maybe some contractors that kind of pass through there. I've heard that in years past that builders
And you're saying
things of
use
that nature.
Hazelnut? Which is not a public road anyway.
Not a public road. It has been there for as long as I have been around and presumably dates back, decades. But it is not a state-maintained road.
From a notice standpoint, we probably, I know we don't have the requirement necessarily to tell the people that are outside our jurisdiction, but to be friendly neighbors, would we even endeavor to ask them?
I think it would be appropriate to find out what their feelings are about it one way or another. Again, when this was considered one time prior, there was some dissension within the Jackson Hamlet neighborhood about the closing of that access point. There is another small enclave, and I think there's some family relationships off of Floyd Way, which is down there in the curve of Diamond Head, just before you get to the dam that crosses Lake Pinehurst. And the access point to Floyd Way is via Diamond Head. There is no other access through the Jackson Hamlet neighborhood. So back at the time when this was considered one time before, that was some of the concerns that were raised by the Jackson Hamlet neighborhood, and subsequently council elected not to do anything at that point. So
It leads into emergency services too, wondering, you'd love to get some input from them, whether or not they even would go down that road, or how they would get there, or what that does to them to get to that community. I don't know the geography of it well enough, but I'd probably want to hear more about what the impact would be on our neighbors too. I don't know how much the lot owners aren't going to benefit by a handful of feet by closing the road.
I think their
don't want
feelings is that it would be a dead-end road or almost essential to a cul-de-sac, i.e. more private, less traffic, I guess. I
Right.
can't say, what the builders' true motivations were in making the request.
Personally, I'd rather hear more from the folks that would be impacted by it before we do it without asking, and just to be friendly. And second, maybe our police and fire chiefs, I would think, like to comment just whether or not it might be county that responds on the other side of the line, or I think they share that responsibility depending on the severity or level of emergency.
Sheriff would respond for police-type services, and I believe it is in our fire district, if I'm not mistaken. So we would handle
Right, it
fire
is.
suppression services.
Just for, a little information to the audience, Jackson Hamlet is an historically black community. We did a number of grants for CDBG, Community Development Block Grants are available for water, sewer, streets, and drainage. However, the priority is water and sewer. So we did all we could that was eligible, because streets and drainage never really came up, so we really couldn't do anything more. It would be all on our own money in our ETJ, which, I don't think that would go very well with our citizens. But we have helped Jackson Hamlet in the past, and they have been very appreciative and come and spoken very highly of their relationship with Pinehurst. So I agree that let's just, let some of them know that this is going to happen, and there's some leadership out there, and let them know.
Well, we'll have some conversations with them, and I'll bring you
Okay.
back whatever feedback I receive, and then you can take that into consideration at that
Okay.
time.
Okay. We have consensus that we want to just start this process, and, okay, all right. So we're going to get the process started by talking with the neighbors.
Find out what the neighborhood and the neighbors adjacent there, how they feel. And then there are some kind of neighborhood leaders within Jackson Hamlet that we can have some conversation
Yes,
with
yes.
that would kind of get a feel for the entire neighborhood.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We're down to other business. Any other business by any council members? We have a record 22-minute meeting. Go ahead, John.
Just two things to think about. Several months ago, we voted to reorganize some volunteer committees, and it's now called the Pinehurst Appearance Committee. These 4 subcommittees have been meeting for some time, and I've met with Bert Higgins, who's the overall PAC chairman, Molly Roll, and Jack Wood. And one of the things we said at the time that we enacted an ordinance to create this body, that we would come back in about 6 months and tell you what's happened since then. So we are preparing to do that. And one of the things that we found is, probably not surprising, that we've learned a lot in this new organization. So we will be coming back, showing you a revised organization where we think now we can have volunteers to even better serve the community by reorganizing and maybe changing the descriptions for some of the subcommittees. So that'll be a future event. For the work session next time, the Beautification Committee has come across something called the New Leaf Society, which New Leaf Society brings together the resources of donors, local partners, and state entities to transform landscapes and create a more vibrant community. So what I'd like to do is just to let you know, I need to find out more information about this. We're working with the Beautification Committee. Molly Rolls has been very good at bringing this forward to see if this is something that Pinehurst, either alone or in conjunction with Aberdeen and Southern Pines, might want to do. Apparently Alamance County, this has been a very, very successful program in Alamance County, all about beautification, trees, flowers, landscapes, and so forth. So just a thought and a bit of a heads up there, Madam Mayor.
Let's have some more information on that at our next work session or our next meeting, however it works out. Okay, any other business from council members? Okay, if not, we'll go to comments from attendees. Mr. Pacifico. We're glad to see you again. We missed you. Yeah, we did.
I was glad to hear that the village manager says we're getting ready to start the budget preparation. I walk the trails here in town. I don't get to all of them, but I think they are in really, really, really bad shape. For example, we can look at if anyone wants to take a little stroll with me after the meeting, just go 50 yards out of the building here down the sand trail. The center of the trail is at least 6 to 12 inches below where they have brick water runoffs to go. And the roots are sticking out. I mean, it's, you take your life in your hands if you're walking down that way. It's terrible. It appears to me that we're missing a few things. And I think one of them is we don't have the proper amount of staff to maintain these trails. We keep adding a half a mile this year, 3/4 of a mile next year, but I never see any addition of staff. And the other thing I see is we don't have the proper equipment. We have a blower that's got, I don't know how many CFM, but it's like a jet engine. When they go down these trails, they blow the grit and the leaves and whatever to the side, and what were some drainage ditches are non-existent now. And what do you have? You have a concave path. So where does the water go? Right down the middle of the path. And to me, you need some sort of a grader that will grade the grit back in to get it at the proper level. And we get a little bit of rain, and you go in the morning to walk, and there's puddles like this morning, just over the whole trail.
I'm sorry, Mark Wagner has left, but Jeff, oh,
He's
you're
back
still
there.
here? Oh, okay. Is there, yeah, maybe there's something that Mark wants to add to this, because,
It's actually a good time for the question with budget. We have requested staff in this coming year's budget to address exactly what you've talked about, because as you've mentioned, we keep adding things, and we haven't added staff actually since 2008 to our department. So that will be something that is in at least my budget request. Whether it makes it to council for managers is yet to be seen, but we have asked for staff. The specific section of trail that you're talking about, the Woodland Garden, that is something that is also in the budget request to redo that section, add more material so that we have a crown in the trail so that the water can run off to the side, get into the ditches and into those diversions that you're talking about.
And for council's memory jogger here, you may recall that sometime last summer, staff presented a Birdie report to you in which we recommended adding staff to Mark's crew there for this challenge, as well as some of the streets and right-of-way challenges we have. And at the time, you all basically endorsed that notion of that we probably have a need. Now, whether we find a place for that in the budget this year or next year or whatever year, we'll see where we go with that. But we have reviewed Mark's budget, did that yesterday, and our position is we haven't seen everything yet, but we all recognize from a management team level the need to continue to endorse that requirement.
And I guess the other thing too is whenever you build these, if they're built properly, you can eliminate a lot of maintenance later on. But if you don't build them properly, you're going to have a continued maintenance. And to go out with a John Deere tractor and a front loader and some sand is not going to get to be the trick. You've got to put down a decent base if you want it to maintain for a period of time. And you got to get the water off of it.
good points. Thank you, Mr. Pacifico. Okay. Any other comments from attendees? Mr. Strickland? I think, unless you have something
Oh, I'm
from
sorry.
reason, I think you should sit right here.
Actually, picking up from what Mr. Pacifico just said, Larry Best has offered a solution to the Woodland Garden pathway. It is concave, as has been said, and Larry has laid out a path for a different route that would be more natural there and avoid some of the natural erosion that's occurring now. I came to make a suggestion, and it has to do with work session agendas. I know the council and the staff are trying to do a lot to keep people informed about issues that you're considering and use Open Village Hall and those sorts of things. But in reflecting back over the past period of months, the agendas for the work sessions are, I would say, increasingly less informative, certainly than the regular meeting agendas such as you have today. Looking back just 2 weeks ago, for example, the agenda for the work session had one issue on it on the 50th anniversary of the Moore County Chamber, I think, and then going over a couple of undefined issues and then into a closed session. And yet, at that meeting, rightly so, among things that you had on your agendas to discuss, your personal raisings, were 9 items that I think were each of importance to the community. They were land use plan, parking in town, western connector, library needs, ETJ issues, course number 6, road cut-throughs with the potential development, the Publix grocery store development, the National Park Service letter, and the sale of traditions. Now, none of those issues were on the agenda for the meeting, and it's clear that at a work session, you're going to raise subjects from time to time that come up maybe even at the last minute. But it seemed to me that in order to encourage people to attend the council meetings and to be informed about things you're discussing, even though at a work session they may not have the ability to speak, but just generally to have those things listed would be helpful to people being here and hearing what you're going to discuss that day. Otherwise, if you look at the agenda, such as 2 weeks ago, they'd say, well, not much going on today, see you another time. But that was perhaps one of the longer work sessions and a very productive one from my experience sitting here that afternoon. So I would encourage you to consider listening when you can, as much as might be brought up that day.
I would say sometimes somebody will throw a topic in on a late Thursday, and, you know, the agenda is published on Friday, correct, Lauren? And so I think we should probably try to do a better job. I heard the same comment from Judy Davis, that she would have come had she known all those things were. She did look at the video, so she was able to have the benefit of the discussion, but being here is a little different. So we need to probably find a way to, some of us don't give our work session items until the very last minute, so we'll try and do a better job on that.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other comments from attendees? Okay. If not, I shall entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:03. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.